The big news we are tracking this hour is the global Petya ransomware has hit India as well now. Operations of one of the 3 terminals at Jawaharlal Nehru Port have been suspended because of the ransomware. Jawaharlal Nehru Port is India's largest port and is now the first place in India to be hit. Report says that the port was affected as the container company Monomas too have been hit globally. We are now joined on this issue by Rakesh Trivedi from Mumbai. Rakesh, what's the status of the port activity, and what are the authorities saying in terms of when can they get back port to its normal routine?
Karthike, what we are learning from the officials of JNPT, we have been told that the operations are still suspended and they are trying to operate manually. And JNPT, the port is trying to help the company, but there is little that others can do as the problem is with the systems. Fearing some clogging up of cargo, additional parking space is being made available by the JNPT, promising to help in any way that is possible. The operations at one of the 3 terminals of India's largest container port, that is JNPT, were impacted on Tuesday night as a fallout of the global ransomware attack. The AP Moller Maersk, one of the affected entities globally, operates the Gateway Terminals India, that is GTI, at JNPT, which has a capacity to handle 1.8 million standard container units. So that is the impact of this ransomware attack at JNPT. And though this is just one terminal at JNPT, the officials are also taking precautions to protect the other 2 terminals so that the cargo movement can move swiftly and very conveniently. Karthike?
But then the fact of the matter is that when we talk about Jawaharlal Nehru Port, it's about huge logistics. So what's the quantity in terms of what's the logistics which is being affected?
Exactly, that's what I told you earlier, that the capacity of just this one terminal, GTI, is about 1.8 million of the standard cargo. So that is the similar capacity of the other 2 terminals also at the JNPT. And this 1.8 million cargo is likely to be affected, and that's the cause of concern for JNPT administration also, which are fearing the clogging up of the cargo shipments that are coming or probably are being exported. So that is the reason that they are providing extra space for the parking so that the containers can be parked and there shouldn't be no chaos at the JNPT.
Rakesh, you stay with me. I'm also joined by my colleague Ankit. Ankit, you were discussing with me earlier in the morning that we are not prepared. Tell us, what can India do to prepare itself for virus attacks like these? Ankit. We'll go back to our colleague Ankit a little later. But coming back to you, Rakesh, as you were telling us that it's like 1.8 million tons. That's the handling capacity of this port. When was this exactly discovered? When did the port actually got affected? So, my colleague Rakesh will also be joining me shortly. So, Rakesh was telling us from Mumbai that one of the sectors of the ports has been affected. Now, that sector handles more than 1 million ton of weight or the quantity of the containers. Now, Rakesh Trivedi is back with us. Rakesh, my question to you was that how much quantity will be affected, but the second is, when did this malware affect the port? When was it discovered by the authorities that something has gone wrong? So I don't think we can get across to Rakesh, but my colleague Ankit is back with me. Ankit, if you can hear me loud and clear, my question to you is that you were saying earlier in the day that we aren't prepared. It looks like we aren't prepared, but what can India do to prepare itself?
Karthik, I would like to highlight a couple of things here. As I was talking to in the morning, clearly India is not prepared. We may not be hit by the ransomware attack as badly as organizations in Russia and Ukraine, but it doesn't mean that we are foolproof. We are not prepared in the sense, so I want to highlight a couple of things here. In terms of infrastructure, the kind of operating system, the kind of infrastructure, the tech infrastructure that we have in the country, it's outdated. It's not in line with the new technology that we have out there in the market. So clearly, as I told you in the morning also, that more than 70% of ATMs in the country still run old versions of Microsoft Windows operating system. And it's one of the operating system that is being hit by this ransomware attack. So clearly, India is equally vulnerable as other countries out there. And talking about, and one more thing that I want to highlight here is the disclosure law. So India clearly lacks this disclosure law. What happens in the countries outside, any organization, be it in public or private sector domain, has to report any data breach. But in country, there is clear lack of transparency.
Ankit, you just hold your thought. Rakesh Trivedi is back with us from Mumbai. Rakesh, what is the expected time by which the JNPT port will resume its normal functioning?
Actually, there is no estimated time being informed to us as of now, but the officials are trying to sort it out as soon as possible, because the JNPT officials say that there is nothing that they can help out with the company since the problem is with their system. So the technical team of the company, that is AP Moller, they are trying to sort this out. And at this moment, we are also learning about another update, an alert message from Gujarat, where another entity which operates globally is also likely to be affected, which operates a port in Gujarat. So this would be another case. If
Rakesh, are you telling me, are you breaking this news on the network that another port in Gujarat has been affected?
That is what we've been learning, that there is a possibility that the officials of the porters are trying to verify this information. So as of now, this is an unconfirmed report from Gujarat port, and this will be confirmed by the officials.
Which port of Gujarat, Rakesh, are you talking about?
Karthik, I need to get some more updates on this port, and as soon as I get the update from the, we can
Rakesh, then I let go of you so that we can have that update from you. So my colleague from Mumbai is saying that there are unconfirmed reports coming that another port from Gujarat has also been affected by this ransomware attack. Ankit, I'll come back to you after a time. But then the ransomware attack has hit computers across the world for the second time in 2 months. The hackers targeted servers of Russian oil giant Rosneft and infected computers of Chernobyl nuclear power plant's radiation monitoring system. The cyber attack also disrupted operations at various Ukrainian banks and shut down computers at various multinational shipping and advertising firms in Spain and Denmark. British advertising firm WBP was the first to confirm the hack. Remember, last month, similar ransomware attacks were carried out in over 100 countries where hackers targeted computers running the Microsoft Windows operating system. Among the worst hit was the National Health Service in England and Scotland. Russian oil giant Rosneft, in a statement, had said, before we get into the details of the report, let me inform our viewers that Itay Glick, CEO of Votiro, directly joins us from Tel Aviv, and my colleague Ankit is also with me from the newsroom. Mr. Glick, my question to you is that this is the second attack in past 60 days. How seriously the world community should take it?
Well, thank you. Well, we actually had an early warning about this, and the WannaCry was that sign for us. It was a sign for everybody to update their Microsoft Windows machines because of the Eternal Blue exploit that was disclosed at that time. This threat is extremely serious because this is a twofold attack. First, they were getting into one computer, and then immediately, within seconds, they infiltrate all the computers in the network. This is the difference between the WannaCry and this Pataya ransomware.
But then, Mr. Glick, what is the antidote for such attacks which disrupt financial systems through the world? How do states deal with non-state actors?
Well, I think that first organizations should keep all their systems updated with the Windows update, whatever they're using, and if that system is an end-of-life system, they should migrate to a newer system. That's the first. The second is have mechanisms to protect your email from undisclosed and zero-day exploits. This is extremely important. Specifically, in this case, we have seen the exploit that has been used, that was an exploit that we have been able to neutralize with our solution.
But then, Mr. Glick, it's like an uncharted territory for many of the countries which have not developed. For example, most of the Western world, their systems are developed. But it's just luck that the countries which are not integrated are not being affected. But as you develop, the enabling technologies through net can play havoc with the financial structures through the world simultaneously in one go.
So, of course, this attack is using a very critical exploit, which is the eternal blue exploit. This is why the only solution to prevent from this specific exploit is a Windows update. The other is, of course, to protect all incoming emails from incoming threats.
So are you saying that this attack, which is called the Golden Eye or the Petnya, as it is being reported, is different from the previous attacks, sir, which have taken place? Fundamentally different from the previous ones?
There is one very big difference between those two attacks. The difference is that in this attack, they used an email to initially get into the network, and then they spread just like the previous one.
So that's the difference. So that's the difference you are suggesting. But then, in terms of developing countries, what are the basics which countries like India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh should do to protect its electronic infrastructure from attack like these?
I think it's very important to have mechanism in place to protect from email threats and from web-based threats. This is called secure email gateways and secure web gateways. And it's important to include in both solutions protection from undisclosed and zero-day exploit, just like the ones that we have seen in this case.
Okay, you stay with me, Mr. Glick. Ankit, coming back to you, and you heard my colleague Ravin from Mumbai saying that we have unconfirmed reports from Gujarat after JNPT in Mumbai that another port is being affected. Do you think it's tip of an iceberg? Do you think that other infrastructures through the day we'll get the reports are being affected?
Absolutely, Karthike. I mean, we just got to know that one of the ports, one of the terminals of Jawaharlal Nehru port has been hit, and now the reports are coming in that one of the ports in Gujarat has also been hit by this ransomware attack. So we can say it's the beginning of the reports in India, because the attack, this Petya attack is similar to the WannaCry attack that hit thousands of computers last month. And talking about India, the same attack, the WannaCry attack, hit computers in West Bengal and Kerala as well. Thousands of computers across the West region and the South region were affected by the WannaCry attack. And it began with a couple of machines, and then the reports started to come out that thousands of machines were hit. So today we can say, like in case of Petya cyber attack as well, two of the ports, two of the terminals have been hit now, and more reports might come out. We just wish that it didn't happen, but more reports might come out that a lot of other machines have been hit by the cyber attack.
Ankit, you can also take questions from the guest who joins us from Tel Aviv. Please go ahead, Ankit.
I just want to know, what do you think are the reasons that countries like India and Pakistan are not being hit by the attack as badly as countries in the Western world?
I really hope that this is the situation. I know that there are additional two pharmaceutical companies in India that were hit by this ransomware. And I think that, I hope that there would be less attacks in India than the rest of the world.
And Glick, I just want to know one more thing here. Do you think the absence of disclosure law in India is one of the reasons that a lot of data breaches are not reported and therefore no investigations happen?
That definitely could be one of the cases. A lot of organizations where there are no rules to disclose breaches would try to handle it inside and internally to protect the brand of the organization. In other countries, there are much tighter laws on breach disclosure, and this is also could be a reason why we are not hearing so much about attacks which are actually undergoing.
So what do you think, in what ways developing countries like India and Pakistan can beef up the security, cyber security, and what are the measures that they need to be adopted right now?
I think that it's extremely important to add some protection to the email channel of the organization. We know that our customers were saved by our technology, and of course, all the time keep your systems updated to the recent available update from Microsoft to just protect you from any upcoming threat. Because all the attacks that are now in the wild are actually being solved by a Windows update.
But Glick, as we know that this attack is basically exploiting a security flaw in Microsoft Windows operating system. So what do you think users, individuals on their personal level should do to avoid such kind of risks?
Well, this specific exploit in the Microsoft Windows operating system was patched in March. So personal users should update their system constantly, and this would help them to protect themselves from this kind of attack. It is not specifically certain that it will be that it will protect them in the next attack, but they should constantly try to keep up with the updates.
Glek, thank you so much for your interesting insights. Karthikeya, Glek has shared quite a few interesting insights with us and also has given some tips as to how individuals can actually beef up the security on the personal level. Over to you, Karthik.
I think the most important point which Mr. Glick made was that the fundamental difference between the previous attack which took place and this, and the way we should be actually buffering our system. And I think it's for this very reason the whole electronic infrastructure in India too has been put on alert. Though from the side of the government of India, it's the NIC whose responsibility is to take care of the government side. But very soon we're going to have some sort of confirmation of the intensity of attack from the Information and Technology Minister, Manoj Sinha, who is the Indian Information Technology Minister. But the attack in itself is more than a wake-up call. The whole world has been put on high alert after the massive ransomware campaign that has infected a number of organizations in the world. But what is this threat? Here is a full report.
Ransomware is a type of malicious software used by cybercriminals to extort money from internet users. The equivalent of a hold-up in cyberspace, ransomware takes the victim's computer hostage by encrypting data stored on the hard drive, as well as any external drives and USB keys connected to the computer at the time of the attack. Hackers then demand a ransom in exchange for the encryption key. Without the key, the data is lost. Payment is generally made in bitcoins, an untraceable digital currency which allows the culprit to remain anonymous. In February 2016, a Los Angeles hospital paid $17,000 in bitcoins to hackers who took control of its computers for more than a week. Ransomware can enter a system when users open an infected email attachment, click on a link, or browse a website which has been hacked. There are several steps you can take to stay safe online. Be cautious when opening email attachments and clicking on links. Avoid suspicious websites. Don't give out personal or financial details unless you're on a secure site or trust the person. Use a firewall and updated antivirus software. Create strong passwords which are long and difficult to guess. And back up important information on external drives which are not connected to the computer.
So let's go across to Arun Vishwanath, cyber expert, who directly joins us from Washington, D.C. Mr. Vishwanath, this attack seems to have crippled even the Indian ports, and the reports are coming that even one of the ports in Gujarat is being affected. Is this a wake-up call to the world community when it comes to the vulnerability of its financial and electronic infrastructure, sir? Mr. Vishwanath, we'll get back to Mr. Vishwanath and we'll be speaking to him. He's a well-known cyber expert in Washington, and we'll be asking him questions on the financial infrastructure which gets affected. Going back to my colleague Ankit, the question remains that this news broke in the wee hours of the morning, and now the events are unfolding and developing right in front of our eyes. Do you think that it requires a concerted strategy, at least from the New Delhi's point of view, when it comes to our own strategic interest? Jawaharlal Nehru Port is not a small institution. it in itself is a very strategic, I would say, interest when it comes to the security and the commercial viability of its commodities in this country.
Karthik, as I was mentioning earlier also, we clearly lack security measures in the country, and as I was pointing out the lack of disclosure law, there is no way that there is no mandate as such that companies both in the public and private sector domain are they have to report any data breach. For example, if an e-commerce giant, say Flipkart, Snapdeal, or for that matter Amazon, in that case, if one of them is actually hacked and personal details of customers are stolen, be it credit card details or debit card details, and in such a case there is no mandate that they have to report, then how would such incidents would come to notice? If these incidents won't come to notice, there would be no investigation, which means you cannot identify the patterns, the kind of trends.
Ankit, just hold your thought for a minute. You know, I'm joined by my colleague Rakesh Trivedi from Mumbai. Rakesh seems to have more update. Rakesh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, Rakesh. Now, can we confirm that another port in Gujarat has been affected?
Karthik, actually, it was an alert message which was received by the official, and we cannot say that it was affected though, because the alert message was because of the APM terminals, this company which operates and which is affected globally. This company also operates the Pipavav port, one of the terminals at one of the largest port in Gujarat. So there was an alert message for this company, this terminal, APM terminal, since it was affected globally. The officials wanted to make sure if it is not connected to the internet or not connected to their server, and that is the reason that there is a visit to this terminal to check whether it is affected or not. So that was the threat message, but officials are still trying to verify whether any of the systems are affected with this recent malware attack at this APM terminal of Pipavav Port, Gujarat or not.
So, and then what's the update from Mumbai, Rakesh?
The JNPT officials are still trying to figure it out, and the experts have been called off. Especially the other IT teams have put on alert, and the cyber team is also advising all companies, especially multinational companies who are operating some of the other terminals in India. They have been, it is likely to release an advisory very soon from the cyber team of Maharashtra government that they should take relevant precautions and the further actions to be decided very soon.
So, Rakesh, as you are saying that there will be an advisory very soon, have you received any word from the company whose system has been affected in Mumbai? Official word, Rakesh?
No, not yet, really, because we are trying to reach these companies, and we are yet to receive some official confirmation or their statement on this regard.
So right now we can safely say for our viewers that work in one of the terminals of the port remains affected?
Definitely, one of the port at JNPT remains affected, and the officials are trying to sort it out as soon as possible.
And to for the benefit of the viewers who are just joining us, can you please explain as to how much quantity this one terminal takes care of, and what is the volume of business affected we are talking about?
This one terminal itself, there are basically 3 terminals at JNPT. This one terminal, which is GTI Gateway, which is called, this handles approximately 1.8 million of the cargo daily. That is the capacity of this terminal, and the same capacity is likely to be affected in next 24 hours, since there would be a clogging up of the cargo if it remains affected. But they are going slowly, because since they are trying to operate it manually, so it would take some time, but there would be some clogging up.
So when you talk about clogging up, that's a very important thing. We are talking about millions of tons being clogged or not being able to reach their destination on time.
Definitely, and especially there is also likely to be a chaos kind of situation to be created at the port because of the lack of the parking capacity for these containers, and that is the reason where JNPT comes in the picture, and they are trying to help at least so that the containers can be provided the parking facility, and after that the containers can be moved to their destination, and so as to avoid the chaos situation at these ports.
And what's the can you give us the details in the total handling capacity of the port?
the total handling capacity of this port is around 4 million tons of the cargo, of the standard cargo container size.
So which means, thank you Rakesh very much. Which means, Ankit, if we go by Rakesh, it's half the capacity which is being affected. That one port is looking after 1.8 million tons. And it also goes on to show that it's only 2.2 million which is being handled by the other ports, which means half the capacity of the port is being affected. Now I'll go back to my guest who very patiently been waiting from Tel Aviv. Mr. Glick, as you were hearing our colleagues reporting from Mumbai, the financial capital of India, in terms of the way the port has been affected. And I'll ask you this question from the perspective, what sort of an investment a country like India needs to make if it wants to protect its financial infrastructure from cyber attacks like these? What is the money we are talking about, sir?
I think that putting in place some regulation to force companies to disclose the breaches and to put them fines on that in cases where those breaches occur would make those companies increase their efforts to protect their organization. And this will bring to a better security to the entire India financial sector.
So, Ankit, I'll take the question to you. He has answered the second part of the question. What sort of money investment are we looking for? Because, no investments come without money. So, are we talking about millions or are we talking about $1 billion investment?
Of course, it will be $1 billion investment, Karthik. And before we get into the financial details of investment, I'd like to say that we need to make certain amendments before we actually figure out what kind of investments we need to make into the new technologies. For example, the IT Act 2000 that we have right now, it was drafted years ago. And the same the same act applies today as well. So we need to understand that the act actually needs amendments, because the way it was drafted years ago, at that point of time, we had a very nascent internet society. The kind of connected devices that we had at that point of time were very less. And the information flow in terms of digital data was very less. And the same set of data, the same set of act cannot be applied today. And a lot of time this act has been criticized and questioned, and certain amendments have been asked for in the law, but clearly the ministry has been turning a deaf ear to it. And we think before we get into the investment mode, we need to make certain amendments, we need to make certain fixes to the existing policies and security measures that we have in the country.
So you're basically talking about the disclosure. You are saying that the fact that disclosure laws are not there in India, a lot of things go unreported, and when they go unreported, they go unaudited. When they go unaudited, your response comes down to tackle them. That's what you're saying, Ankit?
Absolutely, absolutely. So a couple of things: poor infrastructure, outdated technologies, no disclosure law, and old act that we have right now. So there are a couple of things that go hand in hand in enabling us to not deal with it properly.
So basically, it's about the disclosure. And Mr. Glick, before I let go of you, and before we end this program, my question to you is, are those technologies available in terms of prevention at reasonable price for developing countries?
I think that today, with the distribution of cloud solutions, you would find the technology extremely available and an extremely interesting price. We know that customers who had our solution in place in the cloud were protected, and I think that there are a lot of other solutions, good solutions, that could assist organizations to have better protection for their organization. Also, I would add that it's important to do training for cybersecurity for the organization, so the employees would be more aware and more
I think that's a very important point you made, Mr. Glick. I really, before we let go of you, what sort of training are you talking about?
Very simple training of sending emails to the employees and letting them know a few guidelines where interacting with external, or when reading emails, or when opening attachment. And there are much more complicated solutions which involve online training, which explain to them why that was a mistake to press on a specific link, and so on. So there are a lot of training programs available for that as well.
But Mr. Glick, you are talking about interactions in which two people are involved, like opening of the mail, or the clicking, or going to websites which you don't have an idea about. So, but there are technologies which are so intrusive that even without your knowledge, your computer literally gets hijacked. It's like sending a virus, or it's like through a mobile application. How do you deal with such advanced intrusions into your system? Because then me as a person sitting right in front of the laptop, it doesn't make a difference whether I have clicked the mouse, whether I have clicked the mail, whether I have gone to an unaccounted website. The technology is so advanced that it intrusively takes control of my computer. Then what does one do?
Well, in this specific case, most of the users in the organization weren't to blame on the attack. Only one user of the organization is the one that clicked and installed the initial malware, and then it spread into the whole organization and locked all the computers. The training would have probably solved or might solve the first one, but of course this is not 100% certain. Training would just reduce the number or the risk factor, and it's important. The other issue that is important is to put in place technologies that, for example, are recommended by Gartner, such as content disarm and reconstruction technologies that actually are capable of neutralizing undisclosed and zero-day exploits.
But
so
then,
this is,
yes. Yes, I'll give you an example, sir. The question, the intent. I'll tell you the intent of the question. There was a case which took place, if you would remember, that people got SMSs that someone is trying to hack into your computer, and they were all there on the Google platform, and they were asked to punch in their passwords. So people very diligently punched in their passwords. And I'm the case I'm talking about. It's a very, and it also happened in the United States of America, the famous the Hillary Clinton hacking case, in which her entourage diligently punched in their Google passwords, and they gave it all away on record. It's like very legally providing your own data through an email, which looks very real. Well, what do you do? Because average customer is an average Joe. He's not an expert like you.
Well, in that case, I suggest two very important things. First is look at the website that you're giving the password to. If you're giving a password to a Google account, verify that it is indeed related to a Google domain. This is one important thing to look for. The second thing is to apply two-factor authentication for your Google account, for your Dropbox account, or any online account that you have. This means that you would need to sign the password, and then you would get an SMS with a key that you would need to enter in order to get into that account. This makes the life of a hacker much more difficult.
So Ankit, I gave an example of the famous attack which took place and continues to rock the American politics when Hillary Clinton's campaign was on. Her entourage, it was hacked. It was hacked in a way in which all the legal passwords were provided by the team voluntarily. Now, Mr. Glick has told us ways as to how we should go forward. But then how do you deal with technologies in countries where they are proliferating at rates faster than other industries, but the literacy levels are low? Like what happens when the banking accounts in India, Ankit, are connected with Aadhaar and PAN card system?
Karthikeya, as we were discussing that government institutions and government agencies are failing to deal with the problem. That is one thing. But on individual level, we have certain responsibilities. We need to behave in a responsible manner so as to keep ourselves safe from certain such attacks. And talking about it, there are a couple of things that we can do on individual level so that we don't face the wrath of it. One of it could be keep updating your security systems, keep updating your software and machines on a daily basis, on a regular basis. And another thing is that if your system is affected by such a ransomware attack, never pay a ransom money, because you never know what kind of damage you can invite otherwise. Because for example, if you pay a ransom amount, it might prompt them to ask for more ransom in return. So a couple of things that we on an individual level need to take care of. We need to behave in a responsible way. If we are going for a digital way, it's our duty and responsibility to behave in accordance to that.
Or is it also happening because of the fact that we are lucky that the technology penetrations are limited to urban centers, Ankit, and the technology penetration in India has not taken place in rural areas, though there are efforts to link banks with PAN cards, with Aadhaar, but isn't it just that we are just lucky that we have not been impacted the way countries like Norway has been impacted? Now, I've been told that the Norway's National Security Authority has said that unnamed and large number of international companies have been impacted.
Karthik, we are harping on the Digital India drive, and we want to convert the entire country into a digital country. But the point is, it's not only about penetration. Along with penetration, the internet penetration, it's also about the kind of security measure that need to be adopted along with that. So even if we are trying to penetrate internet into rural markets, we need to understand, we need to inform them, we need to teach them as to how they can keep themselves safe if any such attack affects their machines. So it's not only about the internet penetration, it's also to do with the security measure that people need to know on individual level.
So, you know, when we talk about individual levels, and I'll go back to our expert who joins us from Tel Aviv, Mr. Glick, you know, we were talking about the Indian experience, the South Asian experience of countries which are developing and are on the technological curve, not arrived like the way Israel is, or the way France is, or the way United States of America is, or the way Scandinavian countries are. The audit will take place, sir. But do you think the time has come that there should be an international law on what today is known as deep net or the dark net, sir?
I think that there is a few consortiums in the world that try to maintain a specific level of security. I think that there would be, like the GDPR, which affects multiple countries anyway. This could be very interesting to see how it is adopted in other nations. The GDPR reflects European Union citizens, and it affects them worldwide. So you need to protect their data everywhere in the world. So eventually, I think that this would be adopted as a much larger scale.
Mr. Glick, thank you so much for joining us from Tel Aviv. And Ankit, thank you for your perspective on this issue and breaking the news on our